Hello and welcome to the Intel Brief. Today is Thursday, 20 February. I'm your host Daniel, and today we'll be covering the recent comments made by senior members of the US administration and Trump. So firstly, let's take a step back to US Vice President J.D. Vance's speech in Munich, which seems to have marked a significant shift in the US rhetoric. What did he say? So he spoke for about 19 minutes, mainly criticizing Europe on various fronts, including security and societal. Stop. So, what did he say? Well, he spoke for about 19 minutes, mainly criticizing Europe on various fronts, including security and societal issues. His remarks appeared to be designed to serve as a wake-up call for European nations. While I agree with several of his points regarding Europe's approach to illegal migration and defence spending, one aspect that stood out to me was the examples he used to support his argument about the rule of law in Europe. These examples were largely based on conspiracy theories that have been circulating online, and we'll go through some of them shortly. But in general, they were framed to suggest that the government and police in the United Kingdom and Europe have gone too far. While there are certainly some instances in the UK that have raised questions for me, lots of the examples he provided were just factually incorrect. He referenced a man named Adam Smith Connor, who he claimed was arrested for praying outside of an abortion clinic for 3 minutes, while in reality, Mr. Smith Connor was arrested for knowingly breaching a legal order that prohibited vigils within 150 metres of the clinic, which was implemented to protect the woman from harassment when visiting these facilities. Had he just done this a few more metres down the road, nothing would have happened. He also mentioned a case in Scotland asserting that one could be arrested for praying at home, which is just fundamentally incorrect and was confirmed to be incorrect by the Scottish judicial system. Vance also brought up the recent terrorist attack in Munich where he was speaking that was conducted by an Afghan asylum seeker, describing it as typical. However, out of the 120 terrorist attacks that were executed or thwarted by police in Europe in 2023, 70 were by separatist terrorists, 32 were linked to left-wing or anarchist groups, and 14 were associated with Islamic terrorism, and only the few left were related to right-wing extremism. Statistics like this are a reminder to us all that what is often portrayed in the news does not accurately reflect reality. One more example I want to address is the annulment of the Romanian elections. Most of you are likely aware of this story, but briefly, it centres around the recent Romanian presidential election, which was annulled after the first round. Vance suggested and continues to suggest even today that this was done at the behest of the EU because they were unhappy with the outcome of the election. This is just simply untrue. The EU has no authority or mechanism to annul elections anywhere within its member states. Declassified intelligence reports reveal that a foreign state adversary conducted a large, organised campaign to boost the popularity of the far-right candidate, leading to the annulment of the results and a decision to rerun the election, which is going to be conducted soon. This situation is fairly straightforward. Evidence of foreign interference led to the decision to conduct the election again. What I found most shocking is that Vance clearly did not verify his talking points or has disregarded information that counters them. He seems to accept information from social media at face value rather than trying to verify it using US intelligence or other means. This is alarming because social media is a contested space. Whether we like it or not, we are currently in a new Cold War, with information being one of the key battlegrounds in this conflict. Hostile foreign nations invest time and resources to influence the information that Western populations consume, aiming to sow discontent and excite anger. If senior US politicians are not verifying the information they receive before they go on stage and talk about it to the world, we are in serious trouble. Then we have Trump's remarks and actions that have been making headlines recently, especially surrounding the events in Munich, but the issues have been simmering since he took office. During his campaign, Trump repeatedly asserted that he could resolve the conflict in Ukraine on the first day. Before he was inaugurated, there were rumors about him communicating with Russia, which, although controversial, made sense given the context. Once in office, however, achieving peace proved to be more complicated than he anticipated. His initial threats to increase support for Ukraine and impose further sanctions on Russia did not yield the desired result. In response, Trump seems to have decided to reach out to Putin directly. While the details of their conversation remain private, significant changes in the geopolitical landscape have followed. Subsequently, there were negotiations held in Saudi Arabia that notably excluded Ukraine, even though Saudi officials advocated for Ukraine's inclusion in these discussions. This situation is reminiscent of the pre World War II negotiations involving Nazi Germany and the Sudetenland in Czechoslovakia, which ended poorly for Europe. Around the same period, Trump claimed that Ukraine was going to hand over $500 billion worth of rare earth minerals. There were also rumors suggesting that Ukrainian President Zelensky had nearly been compelled to sign a contract granting the US 50% of all of Ukraine's natural resources and access to ports and other significant facilities. Ultimately, though, he declined to sign the contract, even under pressure. Fast forward to yesterday, when Trump took to his social media platform Truth to make several controversial claims. He also shared these assertions on X, which were subsequently retweeted by notable figures such as Vice President Vance and Elon Musk. Firstly, Trump claimed that Zelensky is a dictator who has suspended elections. This assertion, which is a key talking point used by Russia to try and undermine Zelensky's credibility, stems from Ukraine's decision to suspend elections due to martial law, which was necessitated by the ongoing conflict. It is perplexing that this does not seem logical to some. Historically, countries do not hold elections while under invasion by a foreign adversary or in times of war, especially one engaged in extensive disinformation campaigns against them. For clarity, the suspension of elections in Ukraine is the result of the martial law, which must be approved by Parliament. The Parliament has overwhelmingly supported these measures, meaning that Zelensky does not have sole authority to stop the elections. Even opposition politicians, critical of some of Zelensky's decisions, have dismissed Trump's claims as ridiculous. Additionally, Trump has alleged that Zelensky's approval rating has plummeted to 4%. This is another unfounded claim that appears to have just been fabricated out of thin air to discredit Zelensky. In reality, a telephone poll conducted earlier this month indicated that Zelensky's approval rating sits around 57%. While this reflects a decline from the 90% he had in 2022 and 77% in 2023, it is still significantly higher than 4%, and also, ironically, higher than Trump's own approval rating in the US. Finally, Trump asserted that Ukraine was responsible for the war. This, again, is fundamentally incorrect. Russia initiated this conflict by first invading Ukraine in 2014 to seize Crimea and some of the eastern regions, and then again in 2022. I'm not entirely sure why all of this happened. I have a few theories, but they're largely speculative. My main theory is that Trump wants to be seen as a hero who saved the world from war, possibly aiming to get himself a Nobel Peace Prize. He seems to hope that this boost in popularity will also help offset his struggles with reducing inflation, which continue to hamper the US economy. Overall, it appears that Trump has a personal aversion to Zelensky and wants to remove him at any cost, even if it upsets every major ally the US has. These past few days have been extremely chaotic, and I feel like we're still not out of the woods yet. Thank you for tuning in to the Intel Brief, your daily update on global geopolitics, brought to you by HM Intelligence. You can support the show by sharing it with your friends and leaving us a 5-star review. And if you're curious to learn more about intelligence, check out one of our courses in the description below. Thank you for listening. I've been your host, Daniel, and I'll see you next time.